administration when it tells our Congress that they have to approve something he wants put through, but they're not allowed to read it, like with the Patriots Act. There's something rotten in Denmark, and it's right here in our nation. And anybody that can buy the fact that when a golfer is gone for 15 minutes, that our fleet can be right out there flying alongside of them. But they got 4 planes that they can't find, and my goodness, they can't send any planes out for them. I tell you what, the person who believes that this wasn't set up by our own government is an idiot.
Certainly we know that the plan for the Office of Homeland Security was drawn up at least a year before the terrorist attack, and that would be in the report, the Phase 3 report of the National Commission on Security in the 21st Century. That report was released at least a year before the September 11th attack. And of course, of that commission, that United States Commission, 13 of the 14 members came to the Council on Foreign Relations. We know that the plans were made for the Model State Emergency Health Powers Act at least a year before the attack. And lastly, of course, the legislation, the USA Patriot Act, which was enacted simply 46 days after the terrorist attack. Actually, that introduced much of the legislation that Bill Clinton could not get enacted after the attack on the Murrah building back in 1995.
This is Primakoff, who's an advisor to America's Homeland Security for George Bush, and he was also a deputy minister for the KGB, and that's really what our country is coming to. We also have Viet Kim, who was the author of the Patriot Act. He is one that assembled it, and he assembled it mostly before the 9/11 event, because it was 9 days later, on the 20th of September, that Bush ordered the Homeland Security into place. Viet Kim is also a part of the Transition Committee for Arnold Schwarzenegger for the state of California. The state of California, if it was an independent country, would be the 7th largest country in the world. Also in that transition committee are a lot of culprits with ties to George Bush, but one of the most blatant is Willie Brown, who advocated during a radio broadcast and is reproduced in an AP article that he thinks that all towns and cities should be abolished and that the state of California should be run from the capital. I'll read a quote to you about U.S. Attorney General Viet Kim, who wrote Bush's Patriot Act that has taken away the Fourth Amendment and quite a few others. And then I'll give you a quote from Adolf Hitler. Quote, "The government will make use of these powers insofar as they are essential for carrying out the vital necessary measures. The separate existence of federal states will not be done away with. The number of cases in which the internal necessity exists for having recourse to such a law is in itself a limited one." That's Viet Kim. Let's hear from Adolf Hitler here. "The administration will not abuse these far-reaching powers. I think security exists for liberty to flourish, and liberty cannot exist without order and security." Now what I did is I woofed you, because really what one said, what I said Adolf Hitler said, is what Viet Kim said. What Viet Kim said is what Adolf Hitler said. And there is very little difference in intent and in meaning. And that's the problem we're meeting with today. My trick on you isn't near like the 9/11 trick that they've pulled on all the rest of us, which is vital to not only our freedoms, but our lives.
It's time for American citizens to stand up and pay attention to what we're here for and what this country was founded upon, and where it could be going if we, each one of us, does not stand up and write our congressmen, our senators, and let them know we are very concerned with what the Patriot Act means. What is it taking away from us concerning homeland security? What are we losing in the Patriot Act? What are we losing in terms of freedom? What are we losing in terms of our spirituality? Taking God out of everything in the country. You know what happens when that happens? I'll tell you. You lose.
Make no mistake about it. I think there was a lot of well-intended people that voted for that Patriot Act. And I think that they really felt that they were doing the right thing, and in some cases, many of them still do. Quite frankly, I looked at it just the other way. I think our freedoms are more at peril when we're in danger. And when we feel that we're in danger, we're willing to give up more of our freedom for security and protection. And I think that that's when our long-term liberties are most at risk.
The easiest way to gain control of the population is to carry out acts of terror. The public will clamor for such laws if their personal security is threatened.
I'm deeply concerned as an American citizen. I know Congressman Dannemeyer has been on the right side a lot of the time. Some of the times I think he's been way out of whack, but I'm about to ask you, do you see the Hitlerization or the Nazization of this nation with the passage of the Homeland Security Act, the Patriot Act, and the Anti-Terrorism Act transferring power from the people to the president and the police as occurred in Nazi Germany?
I hope you're wrong, Anthony. I have a lot of confidence in Attorney General of the United States, John Ashbrook. I know him personally. He's a fine Christian gentleman, a person of integrity, a lawyer of ability, and dedicated to doing what's right for America. If what you describe comes about, he'd be a part of it, and I can't believe he'd do that. I hope, as I say, you're wrong.
Listen, I hope that I'm wrong, Bill. But I believe
I can tell you,
I believe that I'm right.
I share my experience in public life has taught me this: the greatest threat to freedom, and our founding fathers understood this, is government.
George Bush has talked about it. Adolf Hitler's book was called the World Order, the New World Order, the one after Mein Kampf. We know that the Bush family has financed Hitler. Do you not in some way see the Nazization of this nation actually coming about?
No, I don't. And maybe I'm more naive than you think I am. But I say again, what I see is I see a nation that for the first time, at least in this generation, has experienced an attack on itself and it doesn't quite know how to handle it.
In Nazi Germany, the Judgment at Nuremberg movie, which in my opinion is one of the greatest movies ever made because it described what happened to the Attorney General of Nazi Germany. He just lost his integrity to the Nazi Party.
I believe that's what's happened with Ashcroft. He has lost his integrity to the New World Order, because take a look at those boys surrounding him. Every single individual, almost without exception, is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations.
Founders and many of the main people that are on the center of the Council on Foreign Relations are members of the Skull and Bones. So in the last 100 years, an organization which hardly anybody knew anything about when Sutton got his first box of papers, scored 3 presidents, Howard Taft and the 2 Bushes. Then we find out that the people that were in charge of the wars for the last 100 years, Henry Stimson was he was Secretary of War for World War I and World War II. We find that the co-founder of the Skull and Bones, Alphonso Taft, was Secretary of War in the late 1800s. We find that, of course, George Bush, who was head of the CIA, was also a member of the Skull and Bones. Winston Lord was president of the Council on Foreign Relations for some years when Rockefeller wasn't, and he's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations.
These guys from the Skull and Bones have got this election covered like white on rice. Both Scary Carey and George Walker Bush were initiated while laying nude in the coffin at the Skull and Bones. It's heads they win. It's tails you lose. You don't have a chance unless we incite a revelation. Alexandria Robbins, in her book Secrets of the Tomb, puts it this way.
Alexandria Robbins says the cast of the initiation ritual is right out of Harry Potter meets Dracula.
There is a devil, a Don Quixote, and a pope.